Welcome, people. Gather around. Listen, I got a show for y'all today. We are going straight through the ropes, brother. Yo, listen, it's Brian B. We back at it, people. We got one we haven't had for a little while now. We got a Straight Through the Ropes podcast, Wrestle Talk, baby, and I got a guest for you. Listen, it's going to be a very interesting, legendary talk topic, body slamming, crushing, brother. Yeah. Yo, I've been watching wrestling for so long, people don't even get impressions that I be doing this shit. People get lost on it. But listen, we got Straight Through the Ropes talking on the Beeline Web Show. Let's go.
Straight to the point, baby.
It's going down in
3, 2, 1.
People, it's your boy!
Brian B.
Let's go.
Back on the Beeline. I'm looking forward to it. I'm so excited.
Is the influence you have.
Again with strangers!
You gotta be a clean baby's ass.
Hold on real quick.
Knows the hands of fate.
People, it's your boy, Brian B. Welcome to the Beeline Web Show. Let's go. What's going on? I gotta find another voice to do besides Hulk Hogan. I don't know why. That's my go-to. One of the most popular of all time or whatever. But people, listen, I'm very proud to introduce the guest that I have today, and he's very popular, very well known. He has his own show. He is big in the wrestling industry. Listen, I'm talking with the former manager of the one and only. Damn, I forgot John Cena's hands. Whatever he does. John Cena, my boy. Don't get me wrong. John Cena, one of the greatest, if not one of one of the greatest of all time. But we're talking with his former manager back when he was getting started in the industry. We have with us today for that Wrestle Talk, Mr. Kenny Bolin, y'all. Yes. What's up, Mr. Bolin?
You're going to have to raise the energy a little bit. This low energy Trump type rally you're running here.
Ultimate Warrior time.
I tell you what, if you're going to impersonate a voice, impersonate Hogan's, at least people know who that is.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Mr. Hogan right there.
Oh, good God.
Uh-oh. Puppies is going off.
I installed solar lights around my property.
Yeah.
And if anybody gets near the property, the lights go on, and the dogs, of course, let them know they shouldn't be there.
Best for
so we'll get to deal with them during the show. Hey, doggies, please.
That's awesome. But guys, ladies and gentlemen, this is Mr. Kenny Bolin. He is a legend in the wrestling industry.
And in my own mind. Don't forget
listen, you got to be there first, right? To get anywhere else.
Right.
Yeah, he has a very, very extensive role in pro wrestling. Knows some of the greats of all time. I've had a chance to talk with him. Some of the greats
of all time.
Yep. Yeah, and I can't wait to hear the story. And let's start off, Mr. Bolin. Let's just jump right into it.
Yeah.
Tell us where you're from. Tell us how you how you been. What's going on with you? Let's start with the introduction part.
Well, I live in Louisville, Kentucky, and when I broke into the wrestling business, I lived in Nashville, Tennessee. I'd been waiting to get into the wrestling business for some time because Jimmy Cornette beat me in. He had a little private meeting with Jerry Jarrett that I was left out of. We have discussed that on some other podcasts before. Me, Jimmy, and Jerry Jarrett discussed that. But that's a whole nother story for a whole nother show. But I waited 7 years to get in the business, waiting for Jimmy to help me get in, and it never happened. There was always a reason why there just wasn't the right time for me. So I'm shopping at a service merchandise in Nashville, Tennessee, and standing a few people behind me in line is none other than the legendary promoter Nick Goulas, who had been out of wrestling for a while. And I turned around and I told my wife at the time, I said, that's Nick Goulas. I got to go back there and say hi to him, maybe offer him my spot in line or something. So I go back. I said, pardon me, sir. I know you don't know me. I said, my name's Kenny Bolin. I said, I am dear friends with Jerry the King Lawler and Jimmy Cornette. And I said, I've always wanted to be a part of the wrestling business. And I see you standing in line. I just had to come up and say hello. And he's just very friendly and very nice and says, oh, well, boy, this might be your lucky day there, Mr. Kenny Bolin. I'm about to start another wrestling organization here in Nashville. And have you worked in the business before? I said, sir, I've been around it my whole life. I said, I watched you as a kid. I said, I'm 27 years old now. I've been waiting 7 years to get in. I said, I would love an opportunity. I said, why are you back promoting? Well, I'm getting ready to, and I'm getting ready to start a television show. And man, when I take a good look at you, I think I could make you the next Jerry Lawler. I said, well, sir, we've already have a Jerry Lawler, and he's not going away anytime soon. But I would be interested in managing. And then he still ain't gone away. I said, I would be interested in maybe managing or television commentating if you have any slots open for that. He says, absolutely, sir. He says, no, I can tell by your voice you do a fine job, and you obviously have a good knowledge of the wrestling business. So he's just selling me the job right there in line at Service Merchandise. Yeah. So he gives me, we trade phone numbers. Of course, it was all landlines back then. Nobody had a goddamn cell phone. And we trade numbers, and I'm thinking, oh, he's just bullshitting me. There's nothing going to happen. And I'll be goddamn if he didn't contact me, told me to come down to the TV studio and record interviews. My first ever interview with him is on YouTube, by the way. If you type in Kenny Bolin interview Nick Goulas, it'll be the only thing that comes up, because and we got it in one take. I wanted to do it again. He told me he thought it was perfect. And then afterwards I said, sir, I really think I could have done that better. And he says, but we couldn't have. He said that was as good as we could do.
Hey, Ken, your dog's giving us an extra show back there.
Hey, that is every show you all do that.
That's awesome.
This is a non-sex show. Thank you, Coco, for not participating. That is every show. You all only hump each other on television. I'm getting tired of it. They're porn stars.
That is a clip if I ever seen it. That's one of the. Those would be one of the best clips of the Beeline ever.
Humpty. It's every show. They know when they're on camera. They don't touch each other unless the camera's on. And people, my co-host is warning me all the time. Right.
But so you were saying you had so Nick Goulas. So just so I kind of refresh my memory, I might know him. I'm just not sure.
The dean of professional wrestling promoters. He started what we know as Southern style wrestling in the Mid-South. And he's the one that launched Memphis to make it as successful as it was. Then, of course, eventually Jarrett Welch took over, Jerry Jarrett and Roy Welch, which is who hired Jimmy. And Jerry told me personally, he says, Jimmy never told me anything about you. He says, the money that I could have made with the bannering going back and forth, he said, I could have kept both of you heel, and it would have been amazing how much money I could have made with you. Neither one of you would have had to turn babyface. You're the one heel versus heel matchup I could have had to where the fans would just hope you kill each other. Yeah. He said it would have been that good. He said, Jimmy cost me so much money not telling me about you. And that's the God's honest truth.
Got you.
But I think, Jimmy was already competing with Downtown Bruno and Jimmy Hart, and Jimmy was getting put on the B and C shows. Lawler took care of Jimmy Hart. Bill Dundee took care of Jimmy, and then wherever Downtown Bruno mixed into that situation as well. So I think the last thing Jimmy wanted was a fourth manager coming in to be of any competition, and especially from his best friend. I'm sure he would never admit to that, but many people in the, even Bill Dundee says, Kenny, I traveled up and down the road with Jimmy for years and years. He never mentioned your name as far as being in the wrestling business or wanting to be in. I heard all kinds of stories about you. He never once told me you wanted to be. He said, Kenny, if you'd have come to me, I'd have got you in. I said, Bill, I didn't think I had to come to you. I knew Jerry Lawler, and Jimmy Cornette was my best friend. How can I not get in with those two connections? So
two of the legends, man. And one of the craziest things, like you were saying, like, in Beeline, this is if you guys don't know, like we say, like, wrestling is a lot different now. Like, it's a whole different world. Like, it's very well known. Back in the day, it was very popular, but nowhere near as spread like it is now. It's very Southern, a lot of different territories, and there's a lot of stuff going on. And
back then, wrestlers could go see. Right now, you see the same talent over and over and over and over, and the same matchups. And back in the great thing about the territory days, normally you'd go into a territory for a 6 to 8 week run. And then once that program was done, they were called programs or what have you. And then once that program had played out, you'd go to the next territory. And then you might not be back for 6 months. It might be a year. It might be 2 years. And then you would work the territories, and people didn't have a chance to get sick of you. The main stars would stay there. The Lawler and the Dundees and the Jarretts, they would stay there. And then new foes would come in, or baby faces, to try to take down the King or to do team with Jerry. And there was always a cycle of new talent coming through about every 6 to 8 weeks. And now It's the same talent every week, contracted to this company, can't work for that company. And AEW, same thing every week.
That's what happens when you
WWE.
become. That's what happens when you could become mainstream, though, isn't it? It's like
Well, yeah.
it's no matter what happens. It's like, once you have like the top, the top brands, that's what you're seeing. Like, it isn't really nothing you could do. Yeah, you do have new talent that come in and ciphers through and cycles, out or whatever. But you see what's merchandising. You see, like,
Yeah.
same thing with music, same thing with all the entertainment industry, or
Right.
whatever. But it is
Well,
like
the
really
great
impressive.
the great thing would be is if you could find a way to coincide. And I do not follow TNA or NWA any whatsoever, and I barely follow AEW and WWE. But if you had a way to have the top talents of those companies, you don't have to send the whole goddamn roster. But if you had a way to have the top talents of NWA, TNA, AEW, your 3 divisions of Raw, SmackDown, NXT, and AEW's got Dynamite, but they don't really mix their talent up the way that Raw does. But if you had a way to interact, because when 3 companies are in one company, it's one fucking company. Let's face it. Roman Reigns is just as likely to show up on Raw as he is SmackDown. He might not show up on NXT, but they'll even filter talent down there sometimes to give that brand a boost as well.
Yeah,
but when the 3 brands are under one umbrella, that's it. It's WWE. AEW doesn't have CM Punk. CM Punk ain't gonna be going anywhere for a while, it looks like. But
man, yeah, we can talk about that. See,
let's
what's crazy about?
I worked with him.
This is the thing with CM Punk, man. You said a lot. I want to make sure I touch a couple of topics that you said, but so far, just right now. But CM Punk, man, I'm gonna be real. I've said this before on the show. I've never been like a super fan. Like, I've never was like, he was interesting. He definitely kept you entertained. He definitely, a lot
good
of talking.
Good promo.
But it does seem like he just always had like a chip, man. Like you read that shit through the screen. You know what I mean? Like, not even knowing the backstage politics or whatever.
You didn't have to, because he told you the whole backstage politics.
I guess he wasn't lying. And when he went to AEW, one of the most crazy things was like, I was always saying like, one of the biggest pops, I don't give a fuck what anybody says, one of the biggest pops would have been CM Punk coming out that damn, onto that WWE stage after leaving. There's no doubt in my mind. If you think that AEW shit was big, let that damn. No, I'm not even talking about a Royal Rumble entrance. I'm talking about just Raw is on,
whatever,
and his music just starts. I mean, literally, that would be one of the biggest pops of all time.
No, it would have been. It certainly would have been.
Yeah, but it's just like I don't know what's wrong with him, man.
He's tainted merchandise right now. He's a little old for the game to be a top competitor. In my opinion. I mean, I think once you crack your 40s, even though the South was notorious for keeping wrestlers around in their 50s, 60s, and even 70s, but Jerry Lawler, as entertaining as he is, it can't be the top guy in any companies right now. And he couldn't do that in his 60s, and they didn't let him do it in his 50s, even though in his 50s he still probably could draw some good houses.
I saw Jerry Lawler have a match recently, or at least kind of a couple years, with Scott Steiner, like a couple years ago.
It's not been long ago. No,
man, them guys are still going. I saw the Bushwhacker Luke, or I think it was Luke or Butch, one of the Bushwhackers.
God, I get them confused.
He got up in the ring and was wrestling like recently. I was like, these guys.
Ric Flair in his middle to late 70s just had that recent match, claiming
that last match. Claiming, right? You never know with these guys.
Handsome Jimmy Valiant wrestling his last match for 15 years now.
Yeah, it's true, man. The talent, the talent is what made it, man. I'm glad that I'm one of the generations that kind of came up, like you were stating, like, with the Jerry the King Lawlers. Jerry the King Lawler, I knew him more as the announcer
guy. Yeah, you knew the Puppies guy.
Jim Ross.
I knew the greatest heel that ever lived. I met him backstage at the Louisville Gardens in 1974. I was 14. He was 24. He had not yet even become the king. He was in tag matches with Jim White. They were tag champions managed by Sam Bass. He had not yet become the king. And I tell the story that he stole the title from me because I was known as the king of kickball when I was 14 years old at Oldham County Middle School. And we've made a few people believe that too. So when he became the king and did singles wrestling and faded away from Jim White, that's when the fame took off. That's when rumors had it that he was making $400,000 a year in the Memphis territory as a singles champion wrestler who never really had to leave Memphis. the Memphis territory, I should say.
Yeah.
Everybody came to beat him. Everybody came to get a payday in Memphis. Everybody come to wrestle in front of 12,000 people. No matter how good your territory was, it was not doing as good as Memphis. Memphis was the capital of professional wrestling for many, many years. He was the greatest heel that ever lived. And the reason being is that it wasn't a cartoon. It wasn't a show. He told stories that people believed. And all he had to do was work in 5% of the truth, and it made the other 95% true. So when him and Bill Dundee had
with Jerry the King Lawler.
Yeah, when him and Bill Dundee had a beef, for him and Handsome Jimmy, all you'd have to do is mention something that the fans would know is true, and well, that was true. So now everything else is true. And Jerry Jarrett used to have a poster in the back that says "Personal beefs draw money. If you got a problem with somebody, figure out a way to make money off from it."
And Jerry Jarrett, just to clarify real quick, Jerry Jarrett is
son of Jeff Jarrett, or I'm sorry, father of Jeff.
Father
Jarrett.
of Jeff Jarrett. Yeah, one of the
another one of the greatest promoters ever in the history of wrestling. Yeah. He took it over from Nick Gulas and actually probably made it bigger and better.
Yeah.
If that was even possible, Jerry Jarrett did that.
Yeah. Incredible talent, man. But Kenny, you're just showing that you go far back in the industry.
Way back. Well, 1974 is when I started getting a grasp that this is what I wanted to do. Yeah. I could speak fairly well even at age 14, and through knowing and emulating Lawler, it got even better. And by the time I was a senior in high school, I wasn't worried about college. I wasn't worried about working for Kroger, which I did for 5 years. I was going to be a pro wrestler or a DJ or a Major League Baseball player. I was going to be one of the three. And I was actually pretty good at baseball, pretty good at football, pretty good at basketball. But I knew wrestling was my ticket. I knew if I got in. And I thought I wanted to be a wrestler because I was 212 in amateur wrestling at Oldham County High. Nobody ever beat me. I wrestled everybody out of my weight class. And then I realized that's what not televised wrestling is. It doesn't matter how good of an amateur you are. You have to be an entertainer. And I want to be a bad guy. So I need to make people hate me on command. And I got good at that at Oldham County High. I had a select few friends, and everybody else I was practicing to be bad guy wrestler, bad guy manager. I didn't want anybody to like me because I wanted to easily have a 30-second conversation with you and make you hate me. It seemed stupid in high school to those that were watching. Why would he be like that? But I knew what I was doing. I knew if I stepped into a room, if I wanted you to hate me, I could do it. Wasn't so much worried about getting you to like me, but I got pretty good at that eventually too. To where I can charm a room. And that's why I was good in sales and marketing for so long, is that if you get further with sugar than you do vinegar. I learned how to charm people and to make them feel like the most important person in the room. When you can do that, you can sell them. They buy from who they like. They don't buy what they want. They buy from who they like, or they don't buy what they need.
That's real interesting, man. So you definitely, like we said, you started there. So I didn't even know that you were trying to become a wrestler and everything like that or whatever. So let's kind of talk.
That was my goal from the age of 14, was to eventually be in the pro wrestling business.
That's incredible. Yeah. Let's talk about so like you said, you were talking with Mr. Nick.
Let me tell you something, son. If you claim you don't know anything, just shut up and listen, and you'll actually learn. How about that?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
So, see my charm. See how I get people to like me.
I had to look around because I was like, wait a minute.
Somebody in there?
That's heel talk right there.
You got a lot of stuff on your wall back there. What else is that on your wall? I see the Hulk back there.
Yeah, I'm a nerd, man. I've always loved entertainment. I've always big comic book superhero. Got my daughter up there.
My son was into all that. He could probably name everything on your wall, and he was a big Walking Dead comic book fan as well. I'm a big fan of the series. I haven't watched the final episode yet because I want to see it live on AMC. I've got it on AMC Plus. I could see it now, but I want to wait, see the red carpet, see the final episode, and then the 90-minute Talking Dead afterwards, where they bring back all the cast members over the last 12 years.
Oh, I didn't know they were doing that. You know something? Listen, Kenny, I didn't know we were going to talk about this right here, but this is a nice little thing right here.
Well, if you shut up and listen, you'd learn what we're going to talk about.
Take my stuff off, brother.
Get it off, brother.
But I was the biggest Walking Dead fan I'm telling you right now. I used to yell at people for calling me at 9:00 when I started watching from the beginning all the way to the end, and I literally stopped in the last couple episodes. When I haven't watched the last couple episodes, it changed so much, man. But I am gonna watch the last. I'm gonna watch the last one.
Something good in every single episode except for the Daryl and Carol episode. And that episode, not only did I not like it, it's the only episode I've ever watched I didn't care for. I find something I like in every episode. Negan's my favorite character of all time, and I love the governor.
Really?
The governor and Negan are my favorite character. Well, I love the heels, of course.
Oh,
So governor and Negan were my favorite character. Hi, Scooby. And Negan and what's the what he killed her husband. What's his name?
What?
Maggie. So Negan and Maggie are getting ready to do a spinoff. It's going to be called Dead City. That's going to be in New York, and there's going to be zip lines and zombies. Tell me how cool that's going to be.
Yeah, man. I don't know. I mean, I'll check it out.
Shut up! Come on, quit finding shit that's about.
I'll try.
Jesus Christ. Zombies on zip lines. Where are you gonna
I
get
know,
that?
yeah, it sounds like it's so be interesting, but I just grew up watching the show. And you want to know something?
I'm tired of zombies in the woods. I've seen 12 years of zombies in the goddamn forest.
How to do something different.
To go, give me zombies on the boat. Remember in Fear the Walking Dead when you had to worry about them getting on your boat?
That was good, man. Fear the Walking Dead was good for a while, and then they did the whole crazy atomic bomb shit, and I was like, what happened?
Yeah, I tell you what, I'm not excited about the atomic bomb shit because it's been some real dark ass episodes since then.
Yeah,
up until
really
the atomic bomb, and they got some great characters on there.
Really?
Who's the guy that's got the fortress and won't let nobody in? You got to call him. And
I know you're talking about, that he was and you love that guy too, because he kind of went from like asshole to good guy to
I
forgot his name.
I can't never think of these guys' names.
Yeah, I haven't watched Fear the Walking Dead in a while, but I'm all the way caught up to like the new season.
They're back on again. I think in early March they're back with another season of Fear. Hopefully we're coming out of the apocalypse now. So I'm hoping this year is gonna. Yeah, I'm hoping this year is gonna get better.
Yeah, because Morgan made that. Morgan started when Morgan came.
Morgan's the guy, man.
He made that shit. Yeah,
he made both shows, in my opinion. He is
real. Yeah,
master actor.
Morgan was incredible. Yeah, the
wrestling, Walking Dead, whatever the hell y'all want to talk about, we can cover it all.
I love it. I don't got no limits on this show.
Matter of fact, I did a podcast with Stone Cold Steve Austin a few years ago, to where all we did was talk about The Walking Dead in wrestling terms.
Oh,
one of the baby faces gonna make a comeback, Kenny. God damn, baby faces are always down. They're never making. Gotta have baby faces make a comeback.
For real, I didn't know
Steve and I could never think of the characters' names because we watch them just blindly and we can't think of their names. So my daughter-in-law sitting in the background and she's feeding us the names and she barely watches. Kenny, that's Daryl. Kenny, you're talking about Rick. Kenny, that's Maggie. And she would name all the characters. So she's on the phone with somebody and she holds her phone up and she's recording me and Steve on a telephone call. This isn't the podcast, but I had like a 45-minute call with Steve to set up us doing the podcast.
Yeah.
And she's, Kenny, my God, I'm a hero now. My friends are freaking out that they're listening to you talk to Stone Cold Steve Austin.
I'm trying to tell you.
I said, well, we can't post that shit. I said, that's a private call. I said, she shouldn't have done that. She said, oh my God, they're freaking out that I'm sitting here while you talk to Stone Cold Steve Austin. And this was a few years ago.
Yeah,
and so we did two podcasts, and one of them was basically nothing but Walking Dead.
I didn't know he was a fan like that. That's awesome.
Huge fan. He's as big a fan as I am.
Yeah, Stone Cold. That's my favorite wrestler of all time, man.
He mentioned him and Bobby Lashley mentioned me on their podcast, the one on WWE that Steve's. Yeah, he had Bobby Lashley on, and they mentioned me. He says, "Yeah, Kenny Bolin, you was down there with him. I know Kenny from the podcast business." I said, "Hey, man, goddamn, still getting plugs from Steve Austin." Yeah,
that's really cool, man. Yeah, I mean, those guys. I mean, like I said, like we just said before, I grew up watching the Hulk Hogan's and Ultimate Warriors and everything like that, or whatever. So to say that, like, Stone Cold of all time, Stone Cold, The Rock, The Undertaker, Triple H, and Kane are my top 5. That's me. Yeah. I love those. Those are my characters. DX favorite group. The Hardy Boys, my favorite tag.
DX is hard to beat.
It is, man. You would think NWO, right?
NWO, of course, was great.
Yeah.
Until Horace Hogan got in. Horace Hogan killed the goddamn business. Too fucking many. Trust me, if you go back and watch the tapes, and once you see Horace Hogan hit the scene, you'll know why it died.
I'm about to check it out.
Yeah, Horace Hogan. I think he was supposed to be Hulk's nephew or something. And oh my God, they let too many people in. NWO should have been 5 people at best.
Oh man, that shit turned out being a million.
Oh, it ended. And then you had the red division.
I
Red
did
shirt
like
security.
it, man. I did like it, but it's like you are right. A lot of people say that like it should have been, but that's similar to like the Bullet Club. The Bullet Club is
The
like,
Lucha Libre division of the
yeah,
NWO.
LWO.
Back in many divisions, yeah.
Yeah, they had a
The
lot.
Latino World Order it was. Eddie Guerrero, I think, was part of that. Yeah.
Yep.
I worked with
Cannon.
Eddie as well. He was very nice.
Oh man, yeah,
Good
yeah,
guy.
legend in the game, man. So, Mr.
I've worked
Bolin,
with so many legends. When people call me that, man, it's hard for me to accept because I have worked with the legends.
you're a part of it. You're a part of it, man.
Yeah,
Part
but
of
I was in
history.
the background for the most part. But thanks to WWE Network, a lot of my shit gets played. So
That's what I was going to say. Let's talk about your your experience. I know one of the biggest things I just said, one of the biggest names you're going to speak of at this time in this genre is John Cena, man. And you started off. Tell us a little bit about how you got started there.
Interesting you bring that up. I talked about it with one of the hotel managers today and was wanting he was a fan of my show. And he says, "Oh my God, the STARMAKER's calling me to book a hotel." I said, "Yeah." I said, "As a little side job, I book hotels for sales reps to go all over the country and show their products." And he said, "Man, I knew your voice the second you called." He said, "I thought I knew your voice, and then you said Kenny Bolin." He said, "I knew there can't be two with that voice." I said, "No, I hope not." He said, "STARMAKER, what can I do for you?" And so he's calling me STARMAKER and all this stuff. I said, "So obviously, you know about me and John Cena." That, "Oh my God, oh, but you." He's the face of the company of the WWE, and I heard you were the face of company of OVW. I said, "Well, I was there for 17 years, and Danny Davis once said, Kenny, you can't take a vacation. You're the face of the company. You have to be here." I said, "Well, I didn't sign on for that shit." So, but no, so two of the things I'm very proud of is to get John into the WWE, we had to get him out of OVW. So if you go on YouTube and if you YouTube search Kenny Bolin versus John Cena, you will see me in a wrestling match with him. And I always say, and I'm not going to bother to tell you who won the match.
Wow, I didn't know that either.
Yeah. So if you YouTube that, and then my other thing I'm very, very proud of is that we got Mark Cuban involved with us, and Mark made us legit. And I just had a hair up my ass one day and told Jimmy, I said, "I'm going to contact that Mark Cuban." I said, "He's always getting fined. He stands up to the, I said, he yells at referees during the game as a fucking owner." I said, "He acts like a wrestling manager." I said, "I'm going to contact him and see if he would like to be involved with me and John Cena." Jimmy tells me I'm an idiot. There's no way he's going to return your fucking call. I said, "Well, I'm not going to call him. I'm going to write him." And I had Web TV back then. Kenny Bolin at webtv.net was my address. So I write Mark Cuban from watching him on the news and everything. Tell him who I am, what I have in mind. And he says, "Well, Kenny, I'm going to be in Memphis on such and such date. Why don't you and John come down to Memphis? And I'll give you 15 minutes to film whatever you want." I said, "Well, Mark, I appreciate the offer." I said, "But that's a 15-hour round trip drive for 15 minutes with you. I tell you what, you're going to be in Indianapolis in 3 weeks. Would you mind if we came to Indianapolis?" "Oh my God. So where are you from?" I said, "Louisville." "Well, shit, Kenny, I'll send a fucking limo down to pick you up." He said, "We'll pick up you and Cena. Come on up, man. I'll still give you 15, 20 minutes to shoot whatever you want. Stay for the game. Have a good time. Fuck, you can have catering with the players and everything. We'll do a shoot around. I'll make it worth your trip." I said, "Well, if you're sending a limo down, you've already made it worth my trip." So he sends a limo down, picks us up. We go, and Cena doesn't think it's real. Cena does not think he's getting ready to meet Mark Cuban. He thinks it's a work. He has no idea what's going to happen, but he is not going to meet Mark Cuban. Limo pulls up. We go in a side door. We don't go to where the Marks give their tickets. We go in a special side entrance that he told us to go in. Now Cena's starting to think something's up. He's like, "Well, God damn, we might be real." I said, "No shit, motherfucker. Of course we're going to meet him." So we go through the side. "Hell, Mr. Bolin, we're expecting you. Mr. Cuban will be with you in a little bit. If you don't mind having a seat over here with the press." So we sit over there. So they come. They get me and Cena, my cameraman, my brother, and my son. They come get us, leave the press behind. We get the private meeting with Cuban. So we go down, we get the whole press room to ourselves. We act like we are the press, and we're arranging the big meeting between John Cena and Mark Cuban. And this is on video too. And so if you type in Kenny Bolin, John Cena, and Mark Cuban on YouTube, you will see how, and I think we used about 12, 13 minutes worth of footage to put it over. You'll see how Mark Cuban got involved with John Cena. And I had him on my podcast recently to put over the 20th anniversary of me and Cuban putting John Cena on the map in the wrestling business. And attaching Mark
20
Cuban
years ago, man.
20 years ago.
That's crazy.
And attaching Mark Cuban's name. Well, actually, it's been probably 22 years now.
Yeah.
Doggies. So, yeah, I'm very proud of a couple of the things that we did. And it was so real when they saw the video and the press started putting the word out, because Mark Cuban had said as we were walking out the door, He says, Kenny, you let Vince McMahon and Jimmy Cornette know that we're going to take over the WWE. We're going to move it down here to Dallas. And he says, and you know what I'm going to do to Cornette and McMahon? I said, what are you going to do, man? I'm going to take my thumb and squash them like a little bug. So that was the last. And the press heard that. They were outside watching what we were doing because they're getting ready to have their meeting with the players. So that's the last thing they heard. So they're writing the story. Mark Cuban, Kenny Bolin, taking over the WWE. John Cena's involved. Looks like Mark Cuban has signed John Cena to an exclusive contract. So the next morning when I wake up, I don't know that Jim Ross and Vince McMahon know about this shit. I get a call from Cornette. What the fuck did you do last night? I said, what do you mean what I do? I said, I went to Indianapolis. We met Mark Cuban. Yeah, so this shit's true. I said, well, what shit? He said, it's all over the goddamn press. It's all over the internet that Mark Cuban and you and Cena are taking over the WWE and you're going to put him out of business. I said, I never said that. He said, well, that's what the fucking press is saying. He said, it's everywhere.
Spin some
I said,
shit
you're
on you.
shitting me. He said, Ross is furious. Ross is wanting to fucking fire people. I said, well, he probably shouldn't do that because we'll fire him. I said, we'll take him over too. I said, you're kidding me. I said, we're in a work business, Jimmy. They fucking believe that shit. He said, well, Cuban's worth 5 times as much as Vince. They probably do think it's real. He says, Vince is a billionaire if he's lucky. He says, Cuban's worth $5 billion. I said, yeah, I know. That's why I went to meet him. Damn, they got word of it from the press. I had no idea the press had reported it. Our television segment hadn't even aired yet. So I actually got heat for getting hooked up with Mark Cuban. So what did they do? They had Mark Cuban appear at a show at the Airlines Arena down there, and they used Mark Cuban in a bit, I think, with Bischoff, if I remember correctly. So yes, Cuban's been on Raw a couple of times.
That's crazy.
So I had the idea first. I got him first. WWE yells at me because they think Cuban's going to put him out of business. And then they start using him as well. Never got an ounce of credit from the WWE for it.
You want to know something? And that's a good point because
I would like to know something. What do you know that I don't know? Go ahead and tell. I got all day. What you got?
Listen, this was crazy, man. You know, until we told this story right now, like I never even knew. I know OVW, that was a place where, like, you know, a lot of guys were getting their start and stuff like that before they jumped up to WWE. That was like before what NXT like was trying to be or whatever. Now NXT is a full-blown show. But when you told me, like, you know, you were managing John Cena
on a minuscule budget. They got an unbelievable budget in NXT. If we had NXT's budget and that look and national fucking television, can you imagine what we could have done? We were just a little hole in the wall with a tiny, tiny budget. So little of a budget, they were barely paying me. I had to beg them to get supplemental pay. But then again, I made so much money off all the other shit they gave me to do. Setting up personal appearances, advertising. They'd give me 2,500 tickets for every Monday Night Raw show. So I'd trade that shit out for a lot of stuff.
Oh, wow.
So financially, it worked out where I was probably, you know, if you factor in cash and merchandise, I was probably making $100,000 a year in little old Louisville. And I worked whenever the fuck I wanted and went where I wanted.
But you want to know something?
I had it made down here.
NXT really isn't a developmental. To me, I don't think it's developmental, man. I think NXT is a fucking brand. Like NXT is just a brand. And from what I've seen, I've watched a couple of the shows. It's not a very good one. I don't watch it, but I mean, they have good talent.
Overproduced, overacted, overscripted. Nobody is getting to be a real personality. I watched it the other day, and they had some of the stars go down there because they were going head to head with AEW, and they wanted to compete in the ratings, and they still got beat. They still got beat. And if you just watch it, the great thing about Memphis wrestling, many of the Ohio Valley wrestling shows, especially that involved me, they knew better than to give me a script because it would fuck it up. Don't give me a script, give me bullet points, and then I can go out there and be me. There's one thing I know how to do. I know how to be Kenny Bolin. I don't know how to be Jimmy Cornette. I know what Cornette does, but one of our problems is that everybody was trying to read what Jimmy Cornette wrote down, and they'd go out and do Jimmy Cornette interviews as who the fuck ever. And I refused to do that. I wanted to be me. I wanted to tell real stories that were not scripted, not made up. Because if you sit in there thinking about what to say, it comes out. You can tell. And the WWE and especially NXT is full of that. WWE's got some people that can pull it off, and they got a lot that can't. They got a lot that shouldn't be talking.
And that's why, like, I know that's been something that's been said previously, and that's something that's big that's happening now, because it seems like a lot of the talent is starting to have a little bit more of a voice and a little bit more character since Triple H has kind of stepped in and taken hold of developmental.
He has ixnayed a lot of the stuff that Papa McMahon was doing, and it's like when I first started watching NXT, the only reason I watched was to see Shinsuke Nakamura and Asuka. That was the only reason I was watching that show.
Oh, okay.
And Shinsuke Nakamura used to come out with a 9-minute entrance, all kinds of fiddlers coming down. One night, everybody was wearing tuxes and white fiddles, and it was the greatest fucking entrance I'd ever seen. I could not stop watching.
Good.
I didn't even give a fuck if he wrestled, because he's doing his shit all the way down.
Yeah.
There's 9 violin players all over the fucking place, all of them white tuxes, and they did away with that. He goes up to WWE. Good, he had one guy. And he never got the entrance that he got at NXT. They should bring that back and make him the single star. But they said he's just here to surf. He loves the surfing in America. It's the only reason he's here. And he don't even give a fuck to do the shows.
He's older too, isn't he? Shinsuke like 45, 46.
He's 40. Hey Google, how old is Shinsuke Nakamura?
Shinsuke Nakamura.
42.
Yeah, I know he's
old
up
enough.
There. You would never know. These guys, like you said, man, the one thing that's crazy about the territories is when WWE is the most popular name, but these guys, you forget that when they're not in WWE, like Shinsuke or Brock Lesnar, these guys have matches together. Like these people, they wrestle each other on the independent circuit, and then you see them on WWE, think that they wrestled for the first time. Guys wrestled each other 1,000 times over and shit like that.
Here's
it's all
the thing
business.
You got to remember. The reason I started watching Shinsuke was his entrance. His entrance is what got my attention. He don't really do promos to speak of.
Yeah.
So he can't sell you on a promo. He's got to sell you on in-ring ability, psychology, which he is a master of. He makes every fucking thing count.
Yeah, he's good.
The entrance. Now think back to all the greats. Think back to all the greats that you've watched in your era. Now, they didn't really have entrances when I was a kid. When I was a big fan of Jerry the King Lawler, the light went on and Jerry Lawler would walk down, and eventually he had his crown and the spotlight was on him. And the entrance was your robe, your jacket, or that was it. There was no music. Lawler started coming out to Rocky when he came back from a broken leg. Then he started coming out to Superman. And so Superman and Rocky were pretty much his entrances when he came back. He was among the first to have entrance music.
I was going to ask, is Hulk Hogan? I know, because Hulk Hogan started coming out with the I'm a Real American music or whatever. Was he like one of the first?
I think was written by Rick Derringer, who did Rock and Roll Hoochie Coo.
Oh wow!
Back in the 70s. Well, you Google it, goddammit, and learn something.
I love this right here.
Rock and Roll Hoochie Coo, Rick but Real American. But think back to all. Just name me your top. Name me your top 10 favorite wrestlers.
And I just gave you 5. I gave you Stone Cold, The Rock.
No, go slow, one at a time.
All right, so we're gonna do Stone Cold.
What do you think of that entrance?
Stone Cold's glass shattering. Listen,
take away his fucking entrance, and what do you got?
You got a badass, shit talking, beer drinking, Stone Cold stunning. What?
But
what do you want?
You gotta have the fucking entrance. Remember when they changed his music when they tried to make him go heel and they fucked the music up? He came to Louisville and did a segment with me, Enrico Constantino, and Jim Ross. Gotcha. And Jimmy, and he had been on sabbatical from WWE for a while. He kind of took his ball and went home. He wasn't real happy, so he's coming back. Does a tune-up show with us in Louisville to get ready to go back to the WWE. So we got him before they did. Jimmy asked Stone Cold, he said, "What music do you want to come out to?" He said, "The new shit they got you or your original?" "Fuck that new shit. Play my old stuff." So and I was thrilled because I did not want him, because we were going to interrupt him, and I did not want him going out to that shit music. Yeah. So when that music hit, the crowd popped. When that new music hit, the crowd didn't give a shit. Give me your next one. Entrance.
The Rock. The Rock.
Imagine The Rock without his entrance.
If you smell, it is a big thing, man.
Because that's what, and the fans pop before they see him, because they pop when they hear the music.
Unbelievably, it's true.
And you take The Rock's music away, if he had no music at all, or some jazzed up bullshit, made up shit that Jimmy Hart might have wrote. No offense, Jimmy Hart.
Jimmy,
it's
I
not
love
the
you,
fucking
Jimmy.
same. So there's 2. Give me your third one.
Third, Undertaker.
Who's got a better fucking entrance than the goddamn Undertaker?
Undertaker's the king of
I
characters.
was in the Louisville Gardens once for a house. It wasn't a house show. It was called In Your House. Those were the smaller pay.
I remember that.
For $19. This was the cheap pay-per-view because it was only 2 hours.
Yeah.
They brought him out. That goddamn arena just went dark. The thunder and lightning was playing. The purple haze was above him. And a mist of, they even went through the trouble to have a mist of rain somehow follow him to the fucking ring. I got wet because I was behind him as they were bringing him out. So I'm off camera and I'm feeling the mist of the little storm they put over him at this fucking house show. And it's the greatest goddamn entrance I've ever seen. And that's when he had the purple gloves and the purple boots. Yep. And he was the fucking Undertaker. He wasn't the guy on the goddamn motorcycle.
No,
he wasn't the new evil version of whatever the fucking Undertaker was. The original fucking Undertaker. With and Jimmy says that the talent was so enthralled with Undertaker entrances that they would get chills watching they know he's a fucking human being. They know it's Mark Calloway.
Man.
But they said we would get chills watching him come down because we knew how big this shit was going to be. And the bigger the match, the more gongs you got. So if you only got one gong and then he come out, or they started, but if you got like 4 gongs, the shit was on because that was a big fucking match.
One of my favorite,
the bigger the match.
You just said that, and I just thought about it. One of my favorite matches with the Undertaker that to this day, of course, one of the most legendary things about the Undertaker was his match. I think it was SummerSlam, where he wrestled Yokozuna in the casket match.
Oh, and yeah, I remember that.
When
Yoko was terrified of the fucking casket. He got to sell the casket.
And Yoko sold that shit. I mean, and you remember,
I was convinced he was terrified of that goddamn casket.
He sold that shit. And then when everybody was coming out and Undertaker.
Now, did Cornette manage him on that one? Because I can't remember.
I think it was Jim Cornette and Mr. Fuji was there. I think
they both were there. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
I think they both were there. But
I remember how terrified he was
of
that casket, though. And Jimmy was terrified of snakes, and he literally about shit his pants because he had to do a bit with Jake Snake, and he begged them not to touch him with the snake, and they did it anyway.
I heard that about Macho Man too. When Jake the Snake let the snake bite Macho, I heard Macho was scared of the snake.
Yeah, and I think heard that, but of course I heard Jimmy's story firsthand.
Got it.
How terrified he was of that fucking snake.
Yeah.
And I used to have a pet cobra, so it didn't bother me. So I wouldn't give a shit. I had a pet cobra, but of course for the bit, you got to be scared of the goddamn snake, or it doesn't do you any good.
Yeah.
But Jimmy didn't have to do any acting for that one. He was terrified of that goddamn snake. So we've got 3. What's your 4th entrance?
Undertaker. So we got
your 4th wrestler, not entrance.
Triple H. That entrance right there.
He had 2 of the greatest entrances ever. My Time. You remember My Time?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Because Stephanie started coming out. That's a great fucking entrance. I'd play it in my car.
We used to sing that shit at school all day.
Yeah, I'm driving my black Lincoln Town car, and I got that fucking thing blasting because I love the fucking song. I love the entrance.
Good.
And if he'd come out to anything else, he wouldn't give a shit. I like My Time even better than the other one.
Yeah, My Time was
all about the game. I like My Time better than All About the Game.
That new one, the King of Kings one, I fucking love that. I play that on my playlist right now. But
I still like My Time even better than that one.
My Time is good.
My Time, which I held on, so I got to where I like Stephanie's entrance because she had that. All right, what's your 5th?
So my 5th is Kane.
Pretty good entrance.
Kane,
but I knew Kane very well, and Kane was a very nice, very sweet, kind human being, and now he's a fucking diehard right-wing election denying Trump supporter, and he's difficult. Man. He's difficult for me to stay. I'm just disappointed in him. That's not the guy that I knew.
Not the guy I knew. That.
I knew. Well, he was all over Twitter with it, and I was eating his ass alive on Twitter.
Wow.
Saying, he was promoting that right-wing election denying bullshit, blowing Trump. Now that he's made, but people do that for power. If he wants to be the mayor of Knox County in Knoxville, Tennessee, well, he's not going to get there saying Joe Biden's the greatest thing ever lived. You get there blowing Donald Trump because that's
politics.
What politics, which you probably try to stay away from. I don't on my show.
Listen,
so eventually you'll have more viewers than me because they hate it when I talk politics because the advertisers don't like to touch it. I don't give a fuck.
That makes a
I'll
lot of
talk about
sense.
any goddamn
Yeah,
thing.
it's open. It's open
I
forums
got you.
here.
I got you.
But listen, that's really interesting. But you are right. You make a good point, man. We say it all the time, man. One of the biggest things, the entrances for sure, but characters, man. That's been one of the biggest things for wrestling for me. I
Now
love the
want you to name
stories,
three
man.
more. We've covered 5. Those are kind of the 5 obvious ones. Name me 3 more wrestlers that you really like.
All right, so we got Bret Hart, Bret the
What
Hitman
an
Hart.
what a fucking entrance, right?
Well,
How
you
does that
say
how does
that.
that goddamn song not get your attention?
I know, yeah.
And of course, it's so great. It's so great. Natalie had to inherit it.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
in a lot of cases, who would give a fuck about Natalie if she wasn't coming down to Brett's fucking entrance song?
Yeah, Natalia's fucking one of the longest running
She's
WWE
been around a long
competitors
time, and she
forever,
still wants to
man.
be pushed. I've gotten that made very clear. She still wants to be the top girl.
Yeah.
But yeah, great entrance song. Okay, give me 2 more.
So let's see. So we have let me see. Let's just go with let me see. Who's my next? Mankind, Mick Foley.
Well, he had
5
3,
different ones.
he had 3 to 5 entrances. So, what was your favorite of the
Pick
Mankind?
one. Mankind, I think Mankind was my favorite. And I'm talking about
Yeah,
when I talk about Mankind,
that's what everybody calls him. They don't really call him the other names.
Mick Foley, Cactus Jack, Dude
Yeah.
Love. Dude Love was like for a hot minute. But Cactus Jack was more.
I wasn't a Dude Love guy. I was kind of not really. I was probably a Mankind guy as well. Yeah.
Yeah, Mankind. He was
Because
entertaining.
that was the evil nemesis of the Undertaker. I was in Cleveland at SummerSlam as a guest of Cornette's for the Boiler Room match.
Oh man,
I was there for that. Yeah.
Here, all right, Mr. Bolin. Let's
what do we got?
let's ask a couple questions here.
All right.
All right, so we've talked about one big thing that I've talked about to you about when we first started talking was you're best friends with Jim Cornette, guys.
Well, I was
best friends. Yeah, I meant
for
to say that
45 years.
45 years. All right, so let's talk about y'all relationship a little bit. So how did you guys meet each other?
We met at the Louisville Gardens. Jimmy eventually became a photographer at the Louisville Gardens. He used to shoot pictures around the area. And eventually that led to him getting backstage to take pictures of the wrestlers that would pose for pictures in front of a backdrop. I remember, and I know nothing about photography, but I remember Jimmy talking to me about bounce flash. And that's how he would get the shadows not to appear in pictures that he would take of the wrestlers, because if you had them pose and there's a big shadow behind it, in his opinion, it fucked the picture up. So he got backdrops that he put up. If you see a lot of these old Memphis pictures with a blue backdrop or a green one, those are probably Jimmy's pictures, because that's the blue backdrop is what he used the most, a light powder blue that he thought showed up good.
Gotcha.
And to get the shadows out, he had those very fancy, expensive cameras, and he had a thing called bounce flash, to where it would flash up above the wrestlers and take out the shadow behind them. So that's where I learned about bounce flash at. And so he got backstage as a photographer. He noticed I was the only one in the building rooting for Jerry Lawler. And so we, during intermission, we kind of bumped into each other, and he says, "Man," he says, "you a Jerry Lawler fan?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "He's the only reason I come here. If Lawler ain't on the card, I don't even come." And he said, "Well, I noticed you sitting up here in general admission." He said, "How would you like to sit front row?" I said, "Well, how can you do that?" He said, "Well, I take pictures during the matches. My mom runs the picture table, so I pretty much have 2 seats available most of the night." He says, "Mom barely sits there." He says, "Why don't you just take my seat? And if I need a seat, Mom's will be open." I said, "Yeah, that'd be great." So this is how big of a deal it was back when I was like 15 when I met Jimmy, sneaking up on 16, because he started driving not long after that. So the general admission seats were $2.50 where I sat. I sat in the front row of general admission, dead center.
Yeah.
Ringside was $4.50, and I couldn't afford that. So I had to get the general admission and then have a little money to go to White Castle or Kingfish after the show. I had $5 for each show. $2.50 was the ticket, $2.50 to eat on when you left. So if that wants to tell you how different it was,
what a time, man.
74 and 75, if that wants to tell you. So now I got a free seat. So eventually they let me start coming in the back, and I didn't have to pay the $2.50. I met Christine Jarrett, the mother of Jerry Jarrett, grandmother of Jeff Jarrett. So now I don't have to pay the $2.50. So now I got $5 to spend on food at the end of the show. And then eventually I got jobs, and life got a little easier. I started working at Dairy Queen in 1976. So by the time I was 16, I had a job. and making like $90 every 2 weeks, something like that.
Crazy times.
And
man.
damn happy to have it. That was big money. I
Right?
remember buying cassette decks and all the musical stuff I wanted back then, microphones, what the fuck ever.
Yeah.
And so we got to be friends there. And then he starts coming out to LaGrange every other weekend. And every other weekend I'd go to Middletown. And we just got to be very dear friends. We both loved Memphis wrestling. Both were big Jerry Lawler fans. Jimmy was an even bigger, handsome Jimmy Valiant fan. So in life growing up, I was Jerry the King Lawler and Jimmy was handsome Jimmy Valiant. But being as his name was Jimmy, that made it easy. And we were just dear friends forever and ever and ever until I started working for Vince Russo. And then Jimmy called my house once and his voice accidentally got on Vince Russo's show and he lost his fucking mind. Plus, I had quit working on his podcast because me and Brian Last had a falling out because I was doing a podcast on his network. And then 2 weeks into it, he claimed my kids couldn't be on the show no more because they ratted him out for some lies they knew he had told. They work for a law office and they did a lot of research on Brian, found out he lied about where he was going to school, lied about how much money he was making, lied about people he said he was working for, and even lied about where he claimed he lived. So they ratted him out on my show while he was co-hosting and they called him out for all the shit they knew because he would not permit Vince Russo to be on my own show. And out of respect for Jimmy, I said, okay, we won't have Russo on my show, but you don't get to tell me anybody else, I'll give you Russo, but anybody else want to have on, it's my fucking show. You deal with it. If you don't want to co-host it, don't co-host it. So he calls Jimmy after Chris and Maya had ratted him out for all these lies they knew he'd told. And so he tells Jimmy, he says, well, his kids can't be on the show no more. The kids are kicked off. So when Jimmy calls me and tells me that, because Brian didn't have the fucking guts to do it, and we had the biggest yelling match we've ever had. I said, number one, I don't tell you how to do your fucking show. You don't tell me how to do mine. Second of all, the goddamn name of the show is the fucking Bolin Alley. Guess what Chris and Maya's last name are? Fucking Bolin. Get it? Bolin fucking Alley. No, they stay on the fucking show. He don't like it. He can find somebody else. Better yet, Jimmy, let me make it easy for you. Fuck him. Tell him to shove his goddamn show up his ass after 2 weeks. Well, he says the kids are killing the ratings. Number one, there ain't no ratings yet. Number two, any ratings I bring to the show are going to be in addition. I'm only one of a few shows he has. We can't hurt the ratings. We can only help them. If we bring 10 viewers, it's 10 you didn't have before. Yeah. Fuck him. He's full of shit. Tell him to shove his goddamn show up his ass. Well, you can't fucking do that because I can't do the shows without him. And that means me and you can't do any shows anymore. I said, well, I guess that's what it fucking means. Because if you can't fucking get rid of that piece of shit, then I'm not working with him anymore. So he's already mad at me that I've quit doing his show. I've taken the Bolin Alley off their network. And then now me and Vince Russo have been friends for a few years now, which was against Jimmy's will. Jimmy banned me from his show for several months because me and Russo were friends. He hadn't ended our friendship, but well, you can't be on my show if you're going to be friends with Vince Russo. I said, all right, I'll be all right. So eventually the ban lifted. He said I was banned because I hang out with bad people and all this shit. So then when I had the falling out, I start working on Russo brand. I start working on his network. And then Jimmy called me during the middle of one of Russo's shows and he kept calling. He wouldn't quit. So I answered the phone and said, Jimmy, I can't take a call right now. I'm doing a show. I said, but I'll call you when the show's over. Well, how many lies have you told today? I said, well, not very many. I just woke up. He said, well, I've told it. So he starts admitting to the lies he told to people to get out of doing shit on Russo's show. And Russo's freaking. He's going, because me and Russo were doing a video show like me or you were doing it. And then there's Cornette on the speakerphone. And so Russo's just smiling like a crow, just eating all his shit up. And I'm looking like, I said, Jimmy, I got to go. He said, well, call me when you're done with your podcast. I said, all right. So I look at Russo and I bury my head like that. And he said, what's the matter? He said, was that Jimmy Cornette? I said, yeah, it was Jimmy.
That's how
Jimmy
it sounds
Cornette
too.
was on my show. Yeah, he was. Oh my God. Jimmy Cornette was on the Vince Russo show. Yeah, he was. He says, Kenny, you look sick. I said, I am. He said, why? I said, because we're done. Jimmy is never, when this airs, he's never going to speak to me again. So a few hours go by. And then Jimmy calls me. He said, by the way, whose podcast? He said, were you doing your show at 9 a.m? I said, no. And he said, whose show were you doing? I said, Russo's. And then it just almost dead silence. He says, you still talk to that piece of shit motherfucker? I said, well, not only that, Jimmy, I work for him now. I said, I quit doing your network. And I said, Russo actually pays me good. I said, so yeah. I said, I'm on his network. And then there's some more silence. And then he says, so when I called you Was my voice on his show? I said, I tried to tell you to shut up and you wouldn't listen. I said, I hung up on you 3 times and you kept calling back. I said, I tried to get you. My voice was on fucking Vince Russo's show. I said, yeah, Jimmy. I said, but what do you want me to do about it? He hangs up on me. I never heard from Jimmy again. That was it. So Russo called me and I told him what happened. He says, Kenny, I'm not going to air that. He says, I'll cut that out of the show because his shows were pre-recorded as well. He says, it was funny shit, man. He says, but I'm not trying to break you and Jimmy. I said, it don't matter. I said, Jimmy, I said, I'll never hear from him again. I said, his voice was on your show. He's going to fucking lose his mind. And he says, no, call him back. Tell him I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to end up. So that's how good a guy Russo is. He could have played that and just made fun of it and laughed his ass off. He said, no, I don't want to end your and Cornette's friendship. And I said, well, a little late for that. I said, because I don't think this is going to be fixed. So sure enough, Russo cuts it out. He calls me back. He says, Kenny, I cut it out of the show, but do you mind if I show the part where you're sick to your stomach? I said, I don't care. Play it. So, and then we had to explain why
you were sick.
I mean, yeah. So, and that was the last time Jimmy and I ever spoke a word. I called to him, and then Jimmy got named in the Me Too movement. I said, well, maybe it's a good thing me and Jimmy aren't friends anymore.
Shit, I didn't hear about that.
Oh, well, you got the Google machine, right?
Yeah, damn.
Oh, there's several of my friends in the wrestling business that were on that list.
That sucks a lot, man.
Dutch Mantel pointed out, he says, Kenny, did you notice whose names aren't on there? I said, mine and yours. He said, mine and yours. I said, well, that's good. I said, I'm a big flirt too. I said, you figured some angry girl who didn't get a break into business would have named me just for flirting. I said, because I'm just a natural born flirt anyway. I said, but this day and age, you can't even tell a girl she looks good.
Yeah, be
you
careful.
know, so does that mean the other girl looks bad? You know, you can't do that shit anymore.
Yeah, man.
You can't walk up to a table full of girls and go, oh my God, you look gorgeous today.
And
then you get 5 more sitting there. Well, what about us?
Yeah.
What about us? So
yeah, it's got to be difficult because
you know what? Even as a guy, I felt that way. If I'm sitting at a table with 4 you know, especially WWE, I'm sitting at a table with 4 of these studly guys, and then here's my fat ass sitting there. Oh my God, Cena, you look so great today. Well, hey, bitch. What about me? God damn. Fat people need love too, you know. He'll cheat on you. I might stay with your ass, you know,
forever and shit.
Yeah, like forever. So
that's an interesting story, though, man. And you know something. You told me this before. Like this is your you actually told me of this story before, but it's just really crazy because I didn't know you guys' friendship goes back so far, man. Like, and I mean, I'm not trying to be like Peacemaker John and shit, but it's one thing, man, to like you guys have such a rich history together. So I gotta ask, man, why was being on Vince Russo's show such a
he hates Russo with a passion, and he made a t-shirt about pissing on Vince Russo's grave. He's threatened to kill him.
You gotta fucking hate somebody for that, man.
Well, that's what many people have said. How do you hate somebody that bad because they wrote wrestling you didn't like? Vince Russo's even said that. He says, you wish somebody dead because they wrote wrestling you didn't care for? I said, yeah, that's where he's at. And but he made a t-shirt with Jimmy pissing on Russo's grave, made money off of that. And the other thing that really got him mad is that I encouraged Russo to take out an EPO against Jimmy because Jimmy had threatened to kill Russo. He had told me that. He told a few others that. He'd said it on his own show, but he told me personally that he was going to hire somebody from Rockabar that he knew from Rockabar Pizza that agreed to kill Vince Russo for $5,000. I said, you're a fucking idiot. I said, you're a fucking idiot. I said, don't you think when they catch this stupid fuck, because he told me who it was. Yeah. And I'm thinking, you know, this guy doesn't have an IQ of 60 and you're hiring him to kill Vince Russo. Yeah. I said, don't you think when they catch this dumb fuck, he's going to tell them that you hired him to do it? And he says, oh, no, I'm going to be at an autograph thing in Louisville that night. They can't pin that on me. I said, that ain't going to work to me. That's not how that shit works.
That's some serious shit right there.
So I called Russo and I had to tell him. And I said, my kids who work for a law office have said, you need to take out a fucking EPO. Do you really think he'd do it? I said, at this point, I don't know.
Shit.
I said, the man's acting batshit crazy. Yeah, I said, you know, Jimmy threatens to fucking kill everybody. And eventually he wanted me to die so he could kill my son because my son ratted him out for some shit. So Jimmy's got a long list of people that he's threatened to kill or wants to have killed or hopes they die or he wants to pee on their grave or what the fuck ever. But this one I was taking him kind of seriously at. I mean, he's gone through the trouble to tell me he's hired a guy or is going to hire a guy to do it. So Russo takes out the EPO. Jimmy has no idea that I've told Russo to do this. I had to beg Russo to do it. And then my kids had to call him. Hey, we work for a law office. This is what we do. You have to lay paperwork, because if he comes there to kill you, and then maybe you have your brother-in-law's gun, which is what Russo told me he had to do to protect himself, and you kill Jimmy, you haven't laid any paperwork. They could actually pin this shit on you for defending yourself. Or if Jimmy hires somebody to come there and kill you, or if Jimmy wants to do it himself, you have to lay the paperwork. It's like when a girl is being beaten by her boyfriend, you have to take out the EPO. That way, if the motherfucker comes near you, you can stop this before it gets out of hand. Yeah. So he didn't want to do it, but he took out the EPO. They served Jimmy with the papers, and this is a shoot. I'm sure he talked about it on his show. And so he calls me. It says, I've won. I said, how have you won? What did you win, Jimmy? The fucking sheriff came here and served me with an EPO today. I said, yeah. I said, I know. Well, how do you know? I said, it was a EPO from Vince Russo, right? How do you know that? I said, well, I'm the one who told him to do it. You did not. You're just taking a fucking guess. I said, well, it's a good guess, isn't it? I said, no, Jimmy. For two reasons. One, you can't go to prison. You're not going to do well in prison. I said, you ain't going to last a fucking day. So I don't want to lose you. And I don't want you fucking killing Vince Russo or having him killed. I said, he's my friend. You're my friend. So it was the only way to go. I said, I knew they weren't going to lock you up, but at least it might make you think twice before you do something stupid. He still doesn't believe I did it. So he sends Stacy over to my house to interrogate me to make sure I really did it. So Stacy comes over and she says, thank you, Kenny. I said, thanks for what? She says, what you did. And I said, what did I do? The EPO that you took out? I said, yeah. She said, you really did that, right? I said, yeah, I told Jimmy I did. Thank you. I said, I said, why are you thanking me? She said, to keep him from doing something stupid. I said, well, that's why I did it. I said, I don't want to lose Jimmy. I said, I don't want to lose Vince. I said, it was the only thing to do. I said, I'm sure he's pissed about it, but he was going to do something stupid, Stacey, and somebody had to do something. So she goes back and tells him, yep, he did it. So she wasn't really over here to thank me. She just wanted to find out for sure if me, Chris, and Maya did it, which we did. Yeah. Told him that the first time I talked to him. So that just sealed the doom even further. And then after that's when he got recorded on my show, or on Vince Russo's show, and I quit Brian last. So that's the chain of events that caused all that to happen.
Man, that's a hell of a story, man.
Hell of a fucking story. Yeah, I mean, I've told it before, not recently, but I've told.
Kind of sad too, man, because like I said,
it is
man,
sad. It is sad. That's my best friend. I love Jimmy more than I love my brother, and I don't have him.
I really hope you guys can fucking come together on that.
No way.
That's really deep, man.
Yeah, when you threatened to kill my son, threatened to kill. I mean, and he wished I would die so he could get all this done. So when you start wishing death on my son and me, and you want to kill my son,
that's deep, man.
That's kind of the line that you just you
got to be careful with shit.
I would give anything if none of this shit had happened, but it would mean that I would have never had a friendship with Vince Russo, and Vince has been a good friend to me. Yeah, and Jimmy even told me he's just using you to get to me. He never cared. You know, all he wanted to do was have a meeting with Jimmy and put their differences aside, and Jimmy refused to do it. He said we can even make a podcast out of it, and we'll donate every dime of the money to Jimmy's favorite charity. Jimmy wouldn't do that because it's making Russo look like the good guy. So he didn't want any part of that. And I said, so you're going to turn down helping a shitload of people because of your hatred for Vince Russo? He says, no. He said, plus my fans would never forgive me. I said, who gives a fuck? You're doing the right thing. Be a decent human being. And I did everything I could to motivate him to do it, but he wouldn't do it. And of course, his enablers, they're like the Trump cult. These enablers make them act the way they act. And Jimmy, I would like to think, is not as bad as he tries to portray himself, but the enablers love it. They keep supporting him. They keep buying his merchandise. They listen to his podcast, and they enable him, much like the Trump cult does. And so he's doing it for money. And I think he's now convinced himself in his head that he is this person. And I'm sad for it. I miss him dearly. There's not a day that goes by I wish I couldn't pick up the phone and do the shit me and Jimmy used to do and go meet at Steak and Shake once or twice a week and, and just be friends. But
yeah, man,
I've lost my best friend on the planet Earth. And but I guess the timing was good because with all the racist shit Jimmy's been recorded saying, he's been fired from television shows for saying racist shit, homophobic shit, transgender shit. He calls Kenny Omega Twinkle Toes. Gets on him about being bisexual, and his wife is bisexual openly. So I don't know how you can judge Kenny Omega if you can't judge your own wife. And then the hot tub shit came out about Jimmy promising better positions on TV if you joined his wife in a hot tub and shit. So I guess the timing was good because a lot of negative shit has come out that it's good that I wouldn't have to be there to try to make excuses for it. And not saying I'm a fucking saint or anything, but the worst thing you can get me on is that I flirted with a lot of women. No one's ever bitched about it that I'm aware of. But the worst thing you can say about me is that I had a meat scam. Oh, that's another story. I ran a meat scam and I flirted with women. But I also separated OVW. I mean, nobody at OVW can claim I ever tried to get them to do anything with me to get a position on the TV show. And I'm not going to say that women didn't offer it. Hey, if I do this, can you help me get on TV? No, that's not how it fucking works here. Well, little did I know that is how it worked there. I just didn't know it.
A lot of places, apparently. That's what sucks.
Yeah,
man.
a lot of, well, look at the WWE and what Vince McMahon is going to and what cost him millions and millions of fucking dollars.
Crazy shit, man.
It is
really
crazy,
man. And
like I said, I ain't no fucking saint, but I try to be a good person. I'm not a bit religious. I've been a lifelong atheist. But I believe in helping people less fortunate than me. That's why my podcast is dedicated to helping Filipino families.
Yeah, I heard that's awesome.
And I've been doing that for a long time, and I give away a lot more money than I make off that show.
Oh, yeah.
And now there's a lot of people don't want to believe it because I played a scam artist on television, so he must be that guy. And I don't care. My true fans know I save the receipt of every person that we help that goes back years and years. And even Bob Hazelwood, the co-host of my show, I sent him all the receipts before he started doing my show. He says, there's one thing here I noticed, Kenny. I said, what's that? He says, you give away a lot more than you take in. I said, yeah, I do. And he says, and everybody thinks you're, well, not everybody. He said, but there's people, that's the trollers I get rid of. The first thing they go to, well, he's scamming everybody. He keeps all the money. I don't make anybody give me the money. And like the Trump organization will show you, you can legally keep like 98% of the money for yourself if you wanted to do that. But we don't. We send out every fucking penny we make. We even send it directly to the family that you want it to go to. That's and awesome. we keep it as above board as you can possibly do. Anybody that donates like $50 or more, we just immediately send them a receipt to show them where that money went, who got helped, and why. And, awesome. And it's been that way since I've been doing the show. And it's a shame that an atheist does that, but you got these Bible thumpers out there that won't do shit for anybody.
Hey man, that's why being a good person is just being a good person, man.
Being a good person is just being a good person, and you don't and your invisible man is better than my invisible man, or vice versa. I never got into that. Well, your religion's shit. Okay, yeah, well, if mine is shit, why isn't yours?
Too much to think about.
My thing is do whatever gets you through your day. I'm doing what gets me through my day, and if you believe in God and it's working out for you, and the thing that gets me though, well, I'll pray to God and it'll be taken care of. Nope. No, it's not. You're going to have to get off your ass and do something. Yeah. You have to make it, because if praying to God solved all the problems, there'd never be any more dead babies. There'd never be any more hurricanes blowing churches off the ground, killing kids inside of them. Well, it was God's will. Well, why would God do that? So I have a whole fucking argument for praying to God. And, and many times the Filipinos, oh, thank God that you did this. God sent you to me. I said, well, he might have done that. I said, but you've been praying to God for a long time and you're still in a shit way. I stepped up and helped you. And I said, if you want to believe God sent me to you and that's your way to get an out, okay, that's cool with me. Whatever gets you through your day. But that's do something.
That's very cool though, man. Definitely commendable. I think that's an awesome thing. I would love to get somewhere with my show, even with me and my
it takes a while. And we don't make a shitload of money, but then again, when you add it up over the course of a year, and $60, every $60 we raise feeds a family of 4 in the Philippines. It ain't a lot of variety. It's 110 pounds of rice. Yeah. But many of these families will have nothing to eat if we don't do that.
That's awesome.
And when we do better, we make sure they get eggs, they get some soups, they get various things to go with it. We'll give them ice cream days for the kids. We mix in all kinds of things with it. But the big thing is to raise $60 per show to where we can, and many times we do much better than that. Sometimes, I mean, the last show I did, I think made $30. We had shows recently that made $350. We've had shows over the Christmas holidays that made over $1,000. I think our record's like $1,250 or something like that. And that was on Christmas Eve about a year or two ago.
That's awesome.
But every $60 we raise will feed a family of 4 for
That's
30
awesome.
It ain't a lot of variety, but at least there's something on the table every day for that family.
Yeah,
and we have them on the shows. Many times we pay for these kids' internet so they can do their schoolwork, because they still take COVID very seriously over there.
Yeah,
and I think most of them are only going to school 2 and 3 days a week, and then they're homeschooled the others. So yeah, and they'll watch the show. They say thank you for what they've got. They'll post pictures. They post their receipts, and we do everything we can to prove to everybody your donation is going for a good cause. And
Mr. Bolin, that was, I mean, definitely. I mean, the Jim Cornette story I kind of was really into it. I was like, you know, I mean, it's kind of sad whenever you hear, like I said, I'm not trying to.
it
like,
is
whatever,
sad. No,
but-
I'd be the first to agree with you. It's very sad.
Yeah, man. But that is very commendable, man. I think that's an awesome thing that you guys are doing. I'm glad that you were able to do that. I see, you know, I wanted to get to you. I know we're kind of running on time here now, but I know, what else are you doing now? Let's try to get there. So you're out of the wrestling business. You're doing the podcast. You're doing the foundation. So what else? You doing anything else with wrestling still?
Really, no. I just did the 1200th episode for OVW. Al Snow invited me to come and do the show. Cornette was not invited.
Okay.
Cornette was not invited, so that made me feel pretty good that I got invited and he didn't. But there were some people there that there were some people there that Jimmy's had conflicts with that didn't want him to be a part of it. So I think the thing was, like, if he does the show, we're not going to do it. And then he said, well, what if we bring Bolin in? And then apparently they were all happy to have me. So that
awesome.
And it wasn't a competition. I mean, because if I'd heard Jimmy was going to be there, I know there would have been confrontation, or at least if he'd have come up on me, there would have been, because Jimmy couldn't whip me when I was 14 and he can't whip me now. So, but maybe to make a point to everybody, he might have tried. I don't know. Plus my son would have been there, and we know, and my son's a legit badass. There ain't too many people going to take him down. So it would have been an ugly thing. It turned out he wasn't there. My son was out of the country during that time. But if I'd heard Jimmy was going to be there, I wouldn't have been there. They had one other personnel there that I did not want to do the show if he were there. He did some terrible things involving my daughter-in-law, trying to start shit with her as a stalker. And he was a referee on the show. And I said, if he's there, I won't do the show. Well, they made sure he wasn't there. So that was the only request I made. I don't want that person there. He was not there. Did the show, had a great time. And I was told by others that were there is that many of us said that if Cornette's here, we're not doing the show. I said, well, okay, all right. You know,
Do you still keep in touch with John Cena at all?
His father all the time. I've had his father on my show. We've done 2 back-to-back 3-hour shows with him over the past couple of months. He's coming back on again in December. And Johnny has a thing called Fabo Pop. This isn't it. This is A&W root beer. But if anybody makes a root beer better than this, it's Johnny Fabo, who does Fabo Pop, who's John Cena Sr. He autographs all the bottles, and he's just a hell of a guy. He's an ordained, I don't know if you call it an ordained, he's a justice of the peace. He marries people. And so I talk with him all the time. He has told me that I am now officially family. My son and my ex-wife have had dinner with him the last 2 or 3 times they've gone to Boston. And they always send me a bunch of food back from Kowloon's, which is his favorite Chinese restaurant there in the Boston area. And he told me, he says, no, you're family. You're family. And he said, anytime you want me to do your show, or if you need to talk to anybody. And his Cena's dad's 78, John Cena Sr.
Oh, really?
And so I don't, but not even Cena Sr. hears that much from his son. He said he was at his wedding over the summer. He says, I don't even get to see John that much. He said, this is great that I get to talk to you. He says, I don't get to talk to my son that much. And he said he comes in for the holidays and we get to see him then, but he's busy and he's making movies. He's doing Peacemaker. So no, I haven't heard personally from John in a while, but he does follow me on Twitter. So I say hey from time to time. But as far as personal contact with him, I haven't had any in a long time, but it would be great to see him again.
Yeah, one of the legends, man. One of the legends. It's crazy because people say that and you don't think about it, but John Cena just might be one of the best of all time, if not.
Yeah, and plus broke that Guinness World Book of Records for most charitable donations to Make-A-Wish. And
Make-A-Wish Foundation.
And one of the greatest honors that Danny Davis ever paid to me was saying, Kenny, you're the face of the company. And I take that as a great honor because that's the label they put on John Cena. He was the face of the company for the WWE. And if I could have done that for OVW, that is one hell of an honor, because when they call you the face of the company, you're the man. Yeah. And they haven't called anybody else the face of the company. Maybe Hogan in the day, but they weren't using that phrase a lot back then.
No, yeah, but he definitely
Hogan
was.
had his own falling out for being recorded saying the N-word. So he was banned from WWE for quite some time. Yeah. Apparently there is a grace period that if you say the N-word, they will bring you back.
Shit, depending on who you are.
Depending on who you are. So there could be hope for Cornette yet. I don't know.
Depending on who you are, man.
Depending who you are. If you're Hulk Hogan, you say the N-word, you come back. If you're
you want to know what sucks?
Probably ban your ass for life and bury you.
Let me tell you something, Ken. What's crazy is, man, as a black man, I'm not.
Wait a minute, you're black? I'd have never done this show if I'd known.
Who'd have known?
Who'd have known?
It's crazy because I
You,
love
if you'd
Hulk
have known
Hogan,
I was
man.
white, you wouldn't have had me on. So don't play that.
Never,
brother.
But I love Hulk Hogan, man. Even when I heard all the shit, man. You want to know something? I never thought he was, and I don't know him. You don't know actors. You just know what you know because you grow up with them or whatever. But I mean, I was just like, oh, come on, Hulk. Like, come on, man. Don't say some stupid shit. People say stupid shit. People mess up, man.
People say stupid shit. And Cornette's under the same boat. Cornette has badmouthed the transgenders, the homophobes. He was recorded saying the N-word like 16 times on a road trip to where he didn't know he was recorded.
Oh,
and
wow.
And it's on YouTube. It's on YouTube. He fucked up. He fucked up, as the fans say these days.
Yeah.
But he still has a loyal base that loves him no matter what. Many of those people, I'm sure, are black. And I remember many of the black wrestlers contacting me saying, "Did you know this about Jimmy growing up?" I said, Jimmy was a rich white boy, or at least his parents were, that grew up very protected. He was an only child. And shit would come out of Jimmy's mouth that I would let him know you probably shouldn't say that. And now about that road trip, I had no clue that it came out that easy for him on that. I said, but even my daughter-in-law and my son have had to call Jimmy out for saying racist shit that he didn't see as being racist when he would label Muslims a certain way or people from a different country a certain way. He told my son, who was dating a black girl at the time, he had negative shit to say about that. If that ain't racist, I don't know what is. And
he's starting to sound borderline there.
Yep. When you're giving advice to my son, when you're giving advice to my son about dating black girls, which I've dated quite a few myself. As a matter of fact, my mother, I mean, I was raised, and here's some deep shit for you. My biological father was a leader of the KKK in Norfolk, Virginia. Now, I didn't know that till I was 19 years old. He didn't raise me, but I knew who he was. I go see him when I'm 19, and he takes me to a meeting with the Freemasons. And that's when I found out they ended up at the Freemasons because the KKK in Norfolk was disbanded. And I said, well, what's it matter if you just call it a different name? I said, how does that make it any better or any worse? He says, well, what we've done is that we hire a black man and pay him well to be the doorman, and then they can't call us racist. And then we can have our meetings, and the man at the door never knows what we're talking about.
Pretty smart.
Said, really? So, well, or racist, one of the two. And so I was in a magazine with two black girls from OVW. Their names escapes me right now, but they were kind of new into the business, and one of them actually went on and did pretty good, and the other one was she had a screaming gimmick. She did. I wish I could think of their names. My son probably
screaming gimmick. Alicia Fox.
No, but just as cute as Alicia Fox, if you can believe that. And I worked with Alicia. I loved Alicia.
She's beautiful.
Beautiful girl. And but no, it wasn't Alicia. It was two other girls that did not make the big time, but did okay.
Got it.
And so I'm in a magazine with them. This is 2007, I think, 2008 at the latest. And I'm in this magazine. My dad picks up in Norfolk, Virginia, and he calls me out of the blue because we were still at least on speaking terms. Yeah. And he calls me and he says, and he talked like a Southern general. And we'll make this the last story. I know you're running low on time.
No, that's cool.
He says, Kenny, he says, I saw you in this wrestling magazine here. I said, yeah. I said, here where? He said, here in Norfolk. I said, uh-huh. He says, big article about you in there. I said, well, great. I said, what's the name of the magazine? He tells me, just one problem. I said, what's that? And I'm not in my Southern dialect, Southern general mode tonight. He says, but he talked like a Southern general is what he talked like. Yeah. And he says, you're on a picture here, and you got these two, and he used the N-word. I said, well, Dad, I said, we don't really call them that down here where I'm from. I said, well, what do you call them? I said, we call them girls. Yeah. Oh, he says, well, I just want you to know that you being in this magazine and people seeing this, you're bringing great shame upon the family. I said, well, Dad, I said, let me do you a favor. I said, you can no longer consider me a member of the family if that's how you feel. Hung up on him, never spoke to him again. That was 2007, 2008. And my son, he says, whenever I date a black girl, I let him know up front, hey, my dad's father was leader of the KKK, and my dad got rid of his fucking ass so we could be with who we want to be with. Got it. And I've had several black girlfriends, but I always love it when someone says they're not a racist. Well, so-and-so's black and he cuts my hair. Well, so-and-so's black and he mows my yard. Oh,
you're exonerated.
You're in the clear then. I didn't realize that.
It's so much
So,
thought, man.
I
I'll lose
know.
my mind if I
Sometimes it's
went through so much of that shit.
sometimes it's just too goddamn much to think of. But
Yeah.
I was raised by so many racists, and it just ate me alive because we would treat them like shit, and we were dirt poor. Many times, the people that my parents and biological parents that I didn't know that well, the people they're criticizing were doing better than we were. Much
Gotcha.
better in some cases. So how you ever, and I used to watch at Oldham County High when they would judge the Iranian girl, and they
Yeah.
labeled her with all the other Iranians because we were had the Iran Contra hearings and all that shit back then.
Yeah.
And just anybody different than you, people want to judge. And I love people different than me. That's why I fell in love with black girls. Hell, I never even met my first black girl till I was a fucking teenager. And I liked them. I liked them.
A lot to like.
And then I fell in love with Asian girls. Why? I like people different than me.
Yeah, people are beautiful, man. Love everybody, man.
Yeah.
Too much hate, man. I didn't
You and I are probably
more
more alike than most people realize. There's too much.
Hey, man, you're a cool ass guy, man. Thank you so much for coming on. Like, it's crazy because I thought we were really just going to talk about, like, wrestling and stuff, and there was a lot of good stories. But
I'm a brilliant motherfucker, man. I can
really
talk
cool
about
guy,
anything.
man. Yeah, that's awesome. I love this conversation right here. But I know you have a book too. I want to
Yeah.
What's up with your book, man?
This book came out in July of 2015. It's hard to believe, and there's several different covers. I think you can get this thing in like 6 different covers.
You kind of look like Jerry the King Lawler, like for real.
Well,
like,
there's a reason for that, and it isn't called Lawler because Lawler says, "Where'd you get that crown and robe?" I said, "Jerry, my head is photoshopped top of your body."
God,
He did not know that was his robe and his crown.
I'm like, damn, you got a super lookalike. You could be like a stunt double.
And you see my crown in the background. Even though he claims he didn't, that crown once belonged to Jerry the King Lawler. He swears to God, but he came to my house when he heard that I'd sold my black one. It came to my house because that one was supposedly from him too. But it came to my house address from Memphis, Tennessee. Who the fuck else in Memphis is gonna send me a crown? But yeah, that is Jerry Lawler's robe and crown. I'm trying to get the glare out of it.
Yeah. I'm gonna put a link. Beeline. I'm gonna put a link so you guys can check out Mr. Kenny Bolin. You see, he's got much history in the industry, man. Incredible, man. I grew up watching these guys forever, and now that I'm like having somebody legitly who's been involved in this industry, I mean, it's a dream of mine, man. I mean, this is an incredible conversation. I mean, learned a lot and just a lot of history, a lot of rich history, man. Congratulations on all your success, Mr. Bolin. I mean,
well, the book has over 55-star reviews on Amazon. You can get it on Amazon, but if you want an autographed copy, just reach out to me on social media, either on Twitter, which is @StarmakerBolin, Facebook is /StarmakerBolin, Instagram is StarmakerBolin. So I'm pretty easy to find. My email address, kennybolin@msn.com. So it's very easy to find me. And if you'd like an autographed copy of the book, I sell them shipped for $25. Amazon, if you want an unsigned version, I think you can get them for about $15.
I'll put all that right here in this description.
Right down there, bitch. Right down.
Get it all. He's a heel, yo. We love the bad guys on the Beeline. Hey, Mr. Bolin, man, thank you so much for coming on with me today, man. Once again, please feel free to come back on if you ever got anything going on. You want to talk about anything? We do the Wrestle Talk thing every now and then. I got a team of guys. I would love to have you back on. But Beeline, thank you guys so much. It's been straight through the ropes, brother. It's getting late. This is a long.
What you gonna do when Kenny the Star Maker Bolin goes wild on you, man?
Yes, that's my boy right now. I love that guy. Hey, real quick. Hey, Mr. Bolin, little side. I told you I live right around the corner from Lex Luger, man.
Oh yeah,
he lives right around the corner from me.
You know, I've never had Lex on my show. Have you had Lex on?
No, I've seen him. I always see him at Walmart. That's how I discovered that I live right around the corner from him. But I don't never want to. I'm not one of them guys.
Lex Luger actually held my kid in the ring during a Jimmy Cornette promo back in 1988.
Yeah.
And Chris was about a year old, maybe a year and a half, and Jimmy was doing promos at TBS Studios. And Lex Luger and Bobby Eaton took my kid into the ring, Christopher Michael James Bolin, and they kept trying to get Chris to scream and yell during Jimmy's promo, so he'd have to do retakes. And Luger was in, and like I said, I don't know if Luger remembers doing that or not, but it was funny as shit because again, hey Chris, yell over there at Jimmy, say hi to Uncle Jimmy. And they were trying to get him to fuck with Jimmy during his promos. And it was Luger and Bobby Eaton that did it. And Bobby, of course, had known me forever. One of the sweetest men I ever met in wrestling. Just you didn't want to fuck with him, you didn't want to get him mad, but if he liked you, man, he was your friend for life. And he adored my son. Chris and Bobby were just dear friends.
That's
And
awesome.
and he'd known Chris since he was a baby. And when we went down to the Memphis Hall of Fame inductions, Bobby was there. And Bobby hung out with Chris just about the whole time. I mean, I talked to Bobby a little bit, but it was mainly Chris and Bobby talking because
Yeah,
Bobby
yeah.
helped train Chris at OVW.
Oh,
And
okay.
so Bobby and Chris, as a matter of fact, when Jimmy was threatening to kill us and all this shit, and I actually called and left a message on Jimmy's voicemail on Christmas Eve night saying, "Hey, Jimmy, let's put an end to this shit." And of course, he never called me back.
Yeah,
And Chris says, "Dad, I would forgive Jimmy if one person stepped in." He said, "If Bobby Eaton ever says, Chris, get the fuck over there and hug Jimmy and work his shit out," he says, "Dad, I'd do it. I'd do anything for Bobby." I said, "You obviously would." If you
Yeah,
would
yeah,
hug
man.
Jimmy because Bobby Eaton told you to. I said, "You know what? And if Bobby told me the same thing, it would be hard for me to tell Bobby no, because
That's
he's
awesome.
just that fucking good of a guy."
It
He
only
really
takes one person, man, to pull some shit off you never thought would happen.
Sometimes.
It
I mean,
always
I've
does.
intervened in some situations before to where I've
Yeah.
tried to talk to, and it doesn't always work. But
Yeah.
all you can do is try. All you can do is
It's
try.
true. Hey, man, I got something to talk with Mrs. Luger about when next time I see him in Walmart.
Oh, I hope you have. You
I'm
ever spoke
be
to
the
him?
most politest. I don't, man, 'cause I like to leave people in peace, man. But
Yeah.
and he's always there with like his wife, it looks like, and and
Yeah.
I just always want. But when I see him the next time, I'm gonna
Well,
politely
now
as
you have
possible.
something to talk to him about. Just, hey, by the way, I had a guy named Kenny Bolin who used to be Cornette's best friend, says that you and Bobby Eaton put his kid in the ring at WTBS Studios in Atlanta to get him to screw with Cornette during a promo. He might remember it, but he'll know you're telling the truth because you can't make that shit up.
You really can't.
Tell him that my son is now your age. My son's now 35.
Got it, man. That's
Yeah,
crazy. You
Chris
guys are
will be
legends,
36
man.
on March the 16th. I'll be 63 on March 16th.
Man, you guys are legends, man. I
Time
grew up
flies,
watching you
man.
guys,
Time
man.
flies. Well, see, when I do podcasts like this, even when my big ass is dead and gone, this shit will live on and people can learn shit.
Forever, man. Even me. Shit.
But
I
I
mean,
plan
who
on being
knows?
around 30 years from now to do our 30th anniversary show.
That's awesome. Hey, I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward. I'm gonna be checking you
Me
out.
too, because you'll be old
Beeline.
motherfucker then too.
For real. Beeline, guys. Thank you guys. So I know it's been a long one, but yo, this has been incredible. I've really enjoyed myself. I've really
Long
enjoyed
and
myself.
boring. Oh my God.
This has been
Long,
great. I
boring
love
ass.
this. This has been great.
Well,
But
I'm glad you had a good time.
yes, for real. Stay true. Stay positive. Pay attention. I love you guys so much. Have a great night.